Hey, today we're going to be talking about 5 tips on learning effectively, or 5 tips on learning and growth right now on the front.
Thanks for tuning in to Lead the Teams, The Front.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of The Front. My name is Mike Phillips and I will be your host. As always, you can head on over to leadtheteam.tv and check out my YouTube channel there. Please subscribe. Also, you can check out the audio podcasts on Google Play, on iHeartRadio, and on iTunes. And if you would, whether you're tuning in on a video blog or you're listening to a podcast right now, please participate in the comments down below, share your thoughts, share your opinions, as often those lead to a really excellent future show. So today I'm talking about 5 tips on learning effectively, or my 5 tips on learning and growth. And one of the things I want you to understand, when people are learning and growing, they're more valuable, or mentally, sometimes it's a perception, but the perception is that they're more valuable because they're developing themselves. So intrapersonally, they have more self-worth, they have more self-confidence. Interpersonally, then their relationships are better, they're more involved family members, they're more involved parents, they're more involved friends. And certainly in business, they're more valuable because if you have a manager or a leader that is constantly learning and growing and developing themselves and doing new things, then they're in that growth mode. And often the people that either answer to them or that they're working alongside, their peers, will be operating in that growth mode also. And then the people are growing around them, the business is growing, and hopefully then that means the business is doing well. So right now I'm going to go over my 5 tips for effective learning. Number 1, you need to know how you learn. Meaning, do you learn visually? Right? Do you learn by seeing somebody do something? Do you learn auditorily, simply by listening? Can someone tell you something and you reproduce that? Do you learn kinesthetically? So do you have to learn by doing? Right? Do you learn well in a classroom? Do you learn well having a guide, like a mentor, somebody saying, okay, well, here's what you need to do. Pick the hammer up and swing, right? Do you learn in that method by having somebody guide you through that? Keep in mind, all of these methods are valuable. There's not one way of learning that is greater than the other, but what one way connects with you the most. And you have to understand also when you're teaching other people that other people, students, people that are wanting to learn will have different methods also. And so you have to be, for you to master any of these skills and be able to teach them, you have to be an effective student first. You have to know how you learn to be able to let that spread like wildfire and pass it on, right? You can't teach what you don't know, and it's certainly more difficult to teach in a method that you don't know. So you need to understand, how is it as an individual that you learn? What type of student are you, and what do you need? And that doesn't mean that you're never going to take a different approach. It just means, how are you effective at it right now? And then be able to accentuate that, be able to articulate that to your teachers and mentors so they can be a better teacher and mentor to you, and you can be a better student. Number 2, learn completely versus just learning everything that you can as fast as possible, right? You need to take the time to gain some expertise, or at least a basic knowledge. There's a rule of spaced repetition. If you don't know what spaced repetition is, they introduce it often when it comes to college studying. Spaced repetition means you do your studying, you attempt to learn your skill, you study on it, and then you have time and space in between picking up and studying again. So for example, if you're learning a new sales process, if somebody is say a new salesperson in your dealership and they say, well, I need to be able to learn this sales process. Many experts say it takes 26 spaced repetition to be able to produce a skill the same way each time. So if you have to be able to repeat that 26 times in a row. Often it's 26 days in a row because then you have breaks and you have sleep in between and there's that time gap. And then they come back the next day and you have to be able to do the same sales process again if you want that sort of same result. So understand that both knowledge and growth are valuable. You've heard the saying that nothing worth having comes easily. Learning takes time. So you can't say, well, I'm going to do these 26 spaced repetitions all in one day. It doesn't work that way. You need to study it. You need to act on it. You have to be able to take the things that you've learned and apply them multiple times to gain a knowledge of it, and certainly to gain any sort of expertise in a skill. Number 3, you need to teach yourself to ignore other people's agendas and opinions. That if you're more worried about what other people think versus what is right for you right now, just turn the video off, shut off the podcast, stop reading, right? You have to be able to know what is valuable and important to you at the time to learn what skill you're wanting to learn and then go after it. It doesn't matter what other people think. So often, here's what will happen. If you're learning and growing and you're traveling down a path and people that are at your peer level, for example, they see that you're learning and growing. Oftentimes, they may realize it and they will share their opinions, they'll share their agendas, and they'll share their disapproval with what you're doing to keep you at their level. Because if you're growing, what happens is they realize then that they're not, and they need to share that disapproval to keep you at that same place. So you have to be able to ignore other people's opinions and agendas when you know what is right. But to know what is right, you gotta, that could be a whole nother show. You have to learn what your why is and why you're doing it and what you want and do your goal setting and all of those other things. When it comes to learning, you just have to know what's right for you and have the fortitude to stay on that path. Number 4, learn from mistakes. Learn from your mistakes, learn from other people's mistakes, learn from everybody's mistakes. The big key when it comes to mistakes, you can make, and I've said this to numerous people that have worked with me over the years, you can make 10,000 mistakes. Just don't make the same one twice, because if you make a mistake, you acknowledge that it's a mistake, and then you repeat it, it's no longer a mistake, it's a choice. You're making the decision to operate in that fashion, in that manner. So you need to be able to learn from those mistakes. You say, hey, okay, this was a mistake. I did not get the desired result that I want. And you need to be able to tweak it and change it and adjust it so that you're not recreating that same mistake over and over again. Once you've tweaked it and adjusted it, then you hopefully will get a different result that gets you closer to your goal, that gets you closer to your goal of learning of what you want to know, what you want to learn, and what you want to accomplish. And mistakes are important. You got to embrace them, right? You just got to make sure that if you are saying to yourself, man, I don't want to do that again, then don't. Right? Because if you do, that is an active decision that you're making to repeat it or recreate that same mistake. So just learn from it and don't continue to do it over and over again. Number 5, this one is kind of off the beaten path of what I've been talking about. But number 5 is know that your brain changes over time. There are scientific studies that says your brain, the way that it's firing off, the human brain is constantly creating new pathways and new connections, and it's recreating pathways and connections. And believe me, this is not the human brain is not necessarily something I'm an expert on, but I've done enough studying and I know it when it comes down to that neuroscience that your brain is constantly recreating itself. And if your brain is constantly recreating itself and making new pathways, then your mind is constantly changing. Your mindset is constantly changing. And the thing that's hard when people are learning and formulating opinions on things, it's hard sometimes to accept because you go, well, no, I learned this way, and how can all of a sudden I have a different viewpoint or a different opinion? If you do, that's okay. Things change over time. Since we know that physiologically your brain changes over time, it's okay to change your mind and change your learning methods. It goes back to that number one that I said, know how you learn. The way that you learn may change over time. The way that you think about things in your 40s is going to be different than the way that you think about things when you were in your teens, or thought about things when you were in your teens. The way that you think about things as a single individual versus once you've learned some different truths, once you get married, or different truths once you've become a parent. You may have formulated an opinion of how to raise kids as like in my case as a bachelor. You may have when I was a bachelor have formulated an opinion on how to raise kids, but boy, all of a sudden once you have kids, now it's real, right? It's okay for your opinion of how to raise children to change once you have children, because then you're in it, right? You have a whole different mindset. You have a whole different learning style at that point because you're in the throes of it with your kids and your family or your spouse. So understand that things will change, and that's okay. Let it happen, right? Embrace the constant of change. That's important. So that today, thank you for tuning in. I really, really appreciate your time. That's my 5 tips on effective learning and growth. And if you have something to share, if there's another tip that you have that you say, man, Mike, this really works for me also, please pop it in the comments down below. I would love to hear some additional comments or see some additional comments to this one, because there are lots and lots of other ways at effective learning and growth. But these 5 things have stuck with me for a long time and have added a lot of value to me personally. So I wanted to share them with you. So thank you again for tuning in to another episode of The Front. I sure appreciate it. And until we speak next, or until you see me next, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day.